skit about cowbell. So you can go home and Google that. Will you pray with me? Loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. You, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Several years ago, when I was serving Lake Washington Christian Church, which was a new church started by Tom's father, Rick, we had a youth performance group called Adonai, and we had taken the group down to Southern California, and so we rented 2 big passenger vans. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So we'd rented 2 large passenger vans and 1 sort of normal minivan, and piled everybody in, and 1 van was the lead van, and we're driving down, I don't know, I will say 20 lanes of freeway. That might be a bit of an exaggeration. And everybody's going like 80 miles an hour. If you've driven in LA, you know they drive really fast. And so we're zipping along as best as we can, trying to stay in our little caravan and follow. And somehow my van got behind a different white passenger van. And next thing I know, I see what was indeed our white passenger van exiting on the left. And we were on the right. And they exited, and whew, we went on by, and this was back, there were cell phones, so they called our van and said, "Hey, where'd you guys go?" And we said, "We don't know. We'll find you." And so thankfully, some of us could read a map, and we managed to find each other. But I thought of that as I thought of the challenge sometimes of following the right leader, of following the right way. Sometimes it's hard to tell in the midst of life's busyness and fast pace if we are indeed following the right shepherd. When I was in the 2nd grade, I was going to school in Prairie Grove, Arkansas, and I had a teacher named Mrs. Rothrock. How's that for a name for a 2nd grade teacher? And she called everybody Sugar. "Hey, Sugar, Sugar." And the challenge of that was, she called everybody Sugar, boy or girl, all the time. The challenge was you never quite knew if she was talking to you. "Sugar, will you clean off the blackboard?" And we'd look and see which sugar she was referring to. And there, we would often wonder, does she know our names? And we were never quite sure because she just called everybody Sugar. And Jesus makes it clear to his followers today in this passage in John. He knows his sheep, and he knows our names, and he calls them by name. Part of the challenge of knowing which shepherd to follow sometimes is that sometimes we have our own ideas about who this shepherd Jesus is. So it's hard to tell, is this the shepherd Jesus speaking, or is this my idea of what a shepherd should be? But Jesus is the good shepherd, as he tells his followers. In this passage of John, Jesus has just healed a man born blind, and it's created quite a controversy. Almost the entire chapter 9 is taken up with this disturbance that's caused because Jesus healed this man born blind, and he healed him on the Sabbath. First of all, part of the problem was that the man had a pre-existing condition. He was born blind. So Jesus' disciples asked him, well, who sinned? This man or his parents that he was born blind? And Jesus says, no, it's not about that. It's in order to demonstrate God's power to heal. And so Jesus fashions this strange cure out of mud and spit and puts it on the man's eyes. And hopefully we won't be reduced to that level of health care. But the man is healed. But Jesus didn't follow the rules. He didn't follow the right rules. He didn't fill out the permission to heal on the Sabbath form in triplicate. He didn't form a committee to explore whether or not this man was indeed worthy or deserving of healing. And maybe he did have some sin that needed to be dealt with before he was healed. Jesus met this human need with ultimate compassion, bringing healing, curing for this man, and also wholeness. But it made the religious leaders so mad and so upset that they did form committees and panels to question this man. Who do you think you are, all of a sudden being able to see? And they questioned his parents. Who is this man that healed your son? And what's the deal with your son anyway? We think he's lying and not trustworthy. And they say, we don't know. Ask him. Tell him to tell the story. And they question even the innocent bylookers, trying to figure out what is going on. How is it possible that something has happened that we didn't control and we don't understand? And ultimately, the religious leaders drive the man from the temple, excommunicating him, excluding him from the community, because what has happened doesn't fit with how they believe religion, God, salvation works. And they ask Jesus, these religious leaders say, we're not blind, are we? And to this, Jesus gives, and he gets a little frustrated with them, as Steve points out. He says, don't you understand this figure of speech? I am the shepherd, I'm the gate, I'm the gatekeeper. The shepherd protects his sheep and cares for them and knows them and calls them by name and gives them abundant life. The role of the shepherd, Jesus tells these religious folks, is to protect the flock, to provide safety and sustenance, not obstacles and tests, not challenges and constant burden. In Jesus' time, there had been many who claimed to be the Messiah, the anointed one, but often they were people who took advantage of the flock, of the people, who used the people for their own purposes of power or gaining wealth, or even trying to raise an army to rise up against Roman rule. The church today, we know, is also surrounded by many voices that call to us saying, this way to abundant living, in 7 easy steps, just buy my book and I'll tell you. Or send this much for healing. Or send this much and we'll pray. Or pray this way. Or health and wealth can be yours. And security can be yours. All of these voices are plenty of temptation for us, the flock, to follow. And it's also tempting for us, the church, to say, well, we'll be the gatekeepers. We'll determine who is indeed worthy of compassion, of God's healing and compassionate presence. And it's tempting for the flock to decide who gets to come in and who gets to go out. And yet Jesus says, I'm the gate. I let my sheep come in and out with the purpose of providing safety in the flock and abundance in the pasture. So next thing you know, here we are, tempted to follow the wrong shepherds, to hear the wrong voices, and all of a sudden we find ourselves having hearings and controversies over who is in and who is out. And the flock ends up hurt and destroyed. It's not in today's reading, interestingly enough, the verse that most all of us know so well, in verse 11, where Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The good shepherd is willing to sacrifice for the sake of the flock. When I was in that 7th grade class with Mrs. Rothrock, one day I was out playing at recess, and what seemed to me at the time to be the really big kids, they seemed like adults to a 2nd grader, they used to always play baseball up on the field, and most of us littler kids would play around the edges, play 4 square or 2 square or jump rope or things like that. So one day I'm playing at recess, and boom, I got smacked in the eye by a baseball. I'm pretty sure it was probably about 90-mile-an-hour baseball. That's not an exaggeration. And I was one of those kids that whenever I got in distress or got hurt or got too hot or ran too hard, my nose would bleed. So here I'd been hit in the eye by this baseball, and I was closing my eyes, I was crying, my nose was bleeding. I think I was probably a little bit in shock and just, crying and shaking and a mess. And all of a sudden I hear this voice say, "Kerry, it's okay." And I feel my teacher's hands on my shoulders and holding my face as I laid there on the ground, pretty sure I was going to die. In, second grade, I was a little bit dramatic. But I had the realization, she knows my name. Life knocks us down. Life hits us when we least expect it. We can follow the wrong shepherd. We can get lost. We can be broken. But our shepherd knows our name. Our shepherd holds us and calls us by name and says, "It's going to be okay. I'm your good shepherd. And I came to give you life abundant, life more than you can imagine." So if we just follow that voice, trust that voice, we'll be okay. We're in the hands of the Good Shepherd. Amen.